Every punishment has an end, except this one. Imagine knowing the outcome before you begin. Imagine putting your entire strength into a single task, only to watch it collapse at the final moment, and then being forced to start again. Not once, not 1,000 times, but forever. This is not a story about strength. It is a story about endurance, about consciousness, about what happens when a human mind is trapped inside an endless loop. This is the punishment of Sisyphus. He was a king once, clever, observant, too intelligent for his own safety. Sisyphus believed the gods could be outwitted, that fate could be delayed, that death itself could be negotiated. And for a time, he was right. He betrayed the secrets of Zeus. He tricked the god of death. He escaped the underworld, but the gods are patient, and they do not forget. When Sisyphus was finally judged, they did not kill him. They did not torture him with fire or pain. They gave him something far worse: a mountain, a stone, and time without end. Each day, Sisyphus pushes the boulder upward, step by step, breath by breath. His muscles burn, his hands bleed, and just as the summit comes into reach, the stone slips from his grasp and rolls back down into the abyss. And Sisyphus watches it fall, not in surprise, not in anger, but in full awareness, because this punishment is not about the stone. It is about knowing that no matter how hard you try, the result will always be the same. And yet, tomorrow, Sisyphus will push again. This is not the story of a man being punished by the gods. This is the story of a man confronting meaning in a world that offers none. And this is where his true struggle begins. The mountain never changes, neither does the stone. Every ascent begins the same way. The weight presses into Sisyphus's shoulders, familiar and merciless. His hands know the surface of the boulder better than they know his own skin. Each step upward is earned through strain, breath, and resistance. Nothing is given. Nothing is spared. At first, there was anger. Anger at the gods, anger at fate, anger at himself. He pushed harder then, as if force alone could rewrite the ending. Muscles tore, blood stained the rock, and still the mountain offered no mercy. The boulder slipped, gravity reclaimed it, and the sound of stone rolling downward echoed longer than the effort that lifted it. Then came hope, the most dangerous phase of all. Hope that this time would be different. Hope that the gods might grow bored. Hope that endurance itself could earn release. Hope died slowly, not in a single moment, but in thousands of near summits. Each time the peak came into view, each time the stone hesitated, balanced for a breath, and then fell. Sisyphus learned that the mountain does not punish with violence. It punishes with repetition, and repetition changes the mind. Eventually, rage burned out. Hope followed. What remained was awareness, clear, unavoidable, absolute. Sisyphus understood the rules of his existence with perfect clarity. There would be no escape, no reward, no conclusion, only the task. And it was in that understanding that something shifted. The climb up the mountain was agony, but the walk back down was silent. In that descent, Sisyphus was free, if only for a moment. The stone lay below, waiting. The gods were distant. And for those few steps downward, the future did not demand effort. The punishment paused, not because the gods allowed it, but because consciousness reclaimed control. Sisyphus began to measure time differently, not by success, but by presence. Each step became its own moment, each breath its own proof of existence. The task did not change, but his relationship to it did. The gods had designed a punishment of futility. They had not accounted for acceptance. When Sisyphus places his hands on the stone again, he does so without illusion. He knows the ending. He knows the fall, and still he pushes, not because he believes in victory, but because the act itself remains his. The stone does not define him. The mountain does not own him. The awareness does. And in a world stripped of meaning, Sisyphus creates his own, not at the summit, but in the struggle itself. The gods condemned him to an endless task. But they could not condemn his consciousness, and that is where their power ends. Long after the gods turned away, the stone kept rolling. Centuries passed and Sisyphus remained, pushing, descending, returning. The punishment never changed. But the meaning did. A modern thinker once looked at this ancient myth and saw something familiar. Not a cursed king, but a mirror, a reflection of humanity itself. Albert Camus called Sisyphus the absurd hero, not because his task was noble, but because it was meaningless. And yet, he continued, Camus did not ask whether life has meaning. He asked what happens when we realize that it does not, and choose to live anyway. In that realization, Sisyphus is no longer defeated. He is awake. The modern world is filled with mountains, endless work, repeating days, goals that reset the moment they are reached. We wake, we labor, we return, and tomorrow we begin again. Like Sisyphus, we know the stone will fall. We know the struggle will not end. But unlike the gods, life does not demand that we stop. It only demands that we face it honestly. Sisyphus does not smile because his burden is light. He smiles because the burden is his. In choosing to push the stone with full awareness, he takes ownership of his fate. The gods gave him the task, but they could not dictate his inner response. Meaning, he learned, is not found at the summit. It is forged in the act of pushing. So we must imagine Sisyphus happy, not because suffering disappears, but because rebellion takes a quiet form, continuing, knowing the truth, and refusing despair. The stone still rolls, the mountain still stands, and the struggle remains. But in that struggle, Sisyphus is free. And perhaps, so are we.